Okay, so you're ready to dive into office romance with us. I have to admit, I was surprised by some of what we learned listening to this podcast episode.
Yeah, it's one of those things that everyone thinks they understand, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Right. It's not just about finding love, it's about navigating all the professional stuff, too.
Exactly. And
Right.
that can get complicated fast.
So before we get into all that, maybe we should start with the basics. Like, why are people even attracted to their coworkers in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's not like there's a lack of potential dates out in the world, right?
Seriously. Dating apps, social events, you name it.
Hmm.
So what is it about the workplace that sparks these connections?
Well, you know what they say, proximity is a powerful aphrodisiac.
And there's a lot of proximity in an office environment.
For sure. When you're spending late nights together collaborating on projects, sharing successes and failures, it's only natural for bonds to form.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
And sometimes those bonds cross that line from purely professional to something more.
Right. One expert even talked about how collaborative work environments can lead to this, like, natural chemistry between people.
It's true. There's something about working towards a common goal that can really bring people together.
Totally. Shared passions, inside jokes, late-night brainstorming sessions fueled by coffee.
Suddenly those water cooler chats take on a whole new meaning.
Exactly. You don't always choose who you fall for. Sometimes Cupid strikes when you least expect it, like in the middle of a Monday morning meeting.
Uh-huh. So, okay, let's talk about the potential upside of office romance.
Because believe it or not, there are some.
Really? So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not necessarily. For some people, finding love at work can actually have a positive impact on their lives, both professionally and personally.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about the sunny side of office romance.
Well, for one, you have a partner who understands the demands of your job. They get your deadlines, your work stressors, all of it.
It's like having a built-in support system right there in the office.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of teamwork.
Oh, right. If you work well together romantically, maybe that translates to a more productive and creative partnership at work, too.
That's the idea. It can create a more positive and supportive work environment overall.
Okay, that actually does sound kind of nice, but I have a feeling you're about to hit me with the but.
You know me too well. It's true, there are two sides to every coin, and office romance is no exception. Along with those potential benefits come some very real risks, and some could have a serious impact on your work life, especially if things don't go as planned.
All right, bring on the reality check. What kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, let's start with the elephant in the room, your professional reputation.
It's true. Office gossip is a real thing.
It is. And no matter how discreet you try to be, office romances have a way of generating gossip. This can lead to unfair perceptions, impact how colleagues view your work, and even hinder your chances of career advancement.
It's like suddenly you're not being evaluated solely on your merit anymore.
Exactly. Your personal life becomes intertwined with your professional life, which can be incredibly intrusive.
And what happens if the relationship involves a boss and their employee?
Oh yeah, that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
We're talking potential conflicts of interest, allegations of favoritism, and a whole host of legal headaches.
Absolutely. One person's success suddenly becomes entangled with the relationship, creating an incredibly complicated and potentially unfair situation.
That HR professional in the podcast wasn't kidding when they said those power dynamics can be a recipe for disaster.
Not at all. And then there's the whole issue of what happens if you break up,
Oof, that's never fun.
especially when you have to see your ex every single day at work.
Talk about awkward. It can be incredibly disruptive to the work environment.
For sure. So you see, office romance really is a high-stakes game.
Okay, you've officially made your point. So let's say someone listening right now is developing feelings for a coworker. What's the first most crucial step they should take?
Hands down, know your company policy. Every workplace has different guidelines regarding inter-office relationships.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
Some are incredibly strict, while others are more lenient.
So step one is to do your homework and see where your company stands on all of this.
Exactly.
Right? You don't want to get caught breaking any rules, especially when it comes to something like this.
Exactly. And even if a company allows office romance, there are still a lot of unspoken rules to navigate.
That's true. It's like knowing the law is one thing, but understanding the culture of a place, that's a whole other story.
You got it. Every workplace has its own vibe.
Totally. Unspoken rules about communication, social interactions.
Even how people express emotions.
Okay, so it's not just about reading the employee handbook, it's about reading the room. How can someone even begin to decipher all of that?
It's like you said, a whole other story. One of the big things is understanding the level of context in your workplace communication.
Context. I'm not sure I follow.
So some workplaces are very high context, meaning people rely on subtle cues, unspoken understandings, reading between the lines.
Oh, I see. Like you can't just come out and say what you mean. You have to kind of dance around it.
Exactly. High context workplaces require a certain level of intuition and observation. And that can be tricky when you're trying to navigate a romantic relationship.
Especially at work. Imagine trying to decipher someone's feelings through a series of carefully worded emails.
Right. Then you have workplaces that are very low context.
Where people just say what they mean.
Exactly. Direct, clear, to the point.
So in those environments, maybe it's a little easier to have those crucial conversations about boundaries and expectations.
Potentially. But no matter what kind of workplace you're in when it comes to romance, you really do have to be careful. It's like walking a tightrope.
Between your personal feelings and your professional responsibilities.
Exactly. And communication style is just one piece of the cultural puzzle.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. Another big one is power distance.
Power distance. Okay, now you're just using fancy words to confuse me.
Sorry. It's basically about how comfortable people are with hierarchy and authority.
Oh, okay. So like some workplaces are super formal.
Right. Very clear line between bosses and subordinates.
And others are more laid back.
Exactly. Lower power distance. Emphasis on collaboration, equality.
More fluid interactions between different levels of seniority.
You got it.
Yeah.
And all that can influence how people view office romance.
So in a workplace with a lot of power distance, even a hint of a romantic relationship between a boss and their employee could raise eyebrows.
For sure. It's about perception and the potential for conflicts of interest. Then you have workplaces with lower power distance where the emphasis is on collaboration.
So maybe office romance is a little less taboo in those environments.
Potentially. But it's still important to be aware of the dynamics at play.
And to make sure everyone feels comfortable and respected.
Exactly. Regardless of their position or relationship status.
So we're talking about a lot more than just checking the dating at work box on the HR form.
Way more. It's about being a cultural detective in your own workplace,
Paying attention to how people interact.
especially across different levels of seniority.
What are the unspoken rules of engagement?
How do people handle conflict?
What's the overall vibe?
You got it. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And here's the thing. Even if you understand the cultural landscape perfectly, there's still the very personal element of your own communication style and relationship expectations. It's true. And that's a whole other layer of complexity.
Right. It's like we're not just navigating the office culture. We're also bringing our own baggage to the table.
Exactly. Like maybe you're someone who values your privacy.
You like to keep your work life and your personal life separate.
Right. Dating a coworker for someone like that could feel way too intense.
Too much togetherness.
Totally. Especially if you're working in close proximity, there's no escaping that relationship if you're bumping into each other at the coffee machine every morning.
And on the flip side, some people actually thrive in that kind of environment. They love having their partner at work.
Like it makes them feel more connected.
Exactly. For them, it's like their social life and their work life are in perfect harmony.
It's all about finding what works for you.
And being honest about your own needs and expectations. And also paying attention to those warning signs early on.
Ooh, good point. What kind of warning signs should people be looking out for? You know, those red flags that maybe this workplace crush should stay a crush.
Well, a big one is a push for secrecy right off the bat.
Interesting.
Because it creates this weird power dynamic, right?
Like one person has something to hold over the other.
Exactly. And that's never healthy in any relationship, let alone one that's playing out at work.
Yeah.
Another red flag is if someone is using their seniority to influence your decisions about the relationship.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Consent and respect. Those are non-negotiables.
Absolutely. No matter where you are or who you're with.
Okay, so secrecy and power imbalances are definite no-nos. Anything else we should be wary of?
Let's see. I'd say pay attention to how your coworker talks about other colleagues. If they're always gossiping or stirring up drama, that's not a good sign.
Because it probably means they'll do the same thing if things go south between the two of you.
Right. And on a more practical level, be wary of anyone who's always blurring the lines between their work life and their personal life.
So someone who's constantly bringing their personal drama into the office.
Or using work time for personal calls and errands.
Got it. It's all about setting boundaries.
Exactly. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship worth potentially jeopardizing my job,
My reputation.
my peace of mind?
That's a really important question to ask yourself. It's not always an easy decision.
It's not. Sometimes the most mature decision is to admire that coworker from a distance.
And pour your energy into building an amazing career.
Exactly. It can be incredibly rewarding.
So after this deep dive, I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to navigate the complexities of office romance.
That's great to hear.
Or at least I know what red flags to look out for.
That's what we like to hear. Knowledge is power, my friend.
It really is. And who knows, maybe all of this will inspire someone to focus on building a fulfilling career.
Or maybe it will help them clarify what they're looking for in a partner.
It's all about growth. That's what this deep dive has been all about.
Absolutely. Life's too short to be fixated on what might go wrong.
Let's focus on creating a work life and a love life that brings us joy. That's something we can all get behind.
I'll drink to that. Until next time, everyone, thanks for joining us.
See you next time.